Harvestella is a demo that I have played. And now that I have played it, I wanted to make a video once again talking about it because it's not the full game, but once again talking about a demo, which I want to talk to you guys about because there was a lot of things that came from my mind after beating it and that I really need to let out. So hello, my lovely child of the internet. It is I, Multi126789, other known as Multi-Man. Welcome to once again talking about video where today we're talking about Harvestella. At least the demo, not the full game. Now, Harvestella is supposed to release November the 4th, 4 days before Sonic Forgers. As you can tell, I'm a very torn up man because I played the DLC, and knowing that also the Sonic game is supposed to be coming out a few days after kind of makes my wallet scream. But anyways, that's not why we're here. Today, we're actually here because I wanted to discuss something about Harvestella. I want to talk about basically how I felt about playing the demo, stuff I want to tell you guys about, both if you want to pick up this game or play the demo, and thirdly, what I hope that they improve before the full game comes out, because, for me personally, there are some things that I really hope they take a look at and sober up on, but, Anyways, without further ado, let's begin. Okay, so before we start, I'm trying to do my best not to compare and contrast, even though it's very hard, because surprisingly, if you're going to play this demo, I will suggest that you either play the demo before watching this video, which if you don't want to, that's also fine, because I was going to say, secondly, if you're not going to play this demo before watching this video, then listen up, because there's a lot of stuff I'm going to talk about for my personal feelings first, before we get on to the other stuff, okay? So first off, this game is, so, when we watched the Nintendo Direct, and a lot of people were getting mad that there's so many farming games and stuff like that being shown off at the Direct. Like, there was at least 5, maybe 4, depending on how you feel after I tell you what I'm going to tell you for this game. But, there was at least a handful of them, and a lot of people were like, I don't understand why they're showing all these farming games. And I'm like, did you not remember when Animal Crossing popped off back in, like, the early 2020s? That's exactly why. And also, like, some of them are really fun, and some of them are like, they're okay. And I enjoyed playing them, and I enjoyed playing it up to the point where I stopped caring. But, so, from the very beginning of the game, or from those trailers of Harvestella, I never got the impression that this was supposed to be more of an action RPG more than a farming sim. But now that I've played the game, I can happily confirm and also scarcely think of a way why they would present it as a way it really isn't. But Harvestella is a game that is an action RPG where farming is one of the many crucial things in the game, but is not the completely 100% focal point. It's a main focal point, but it's not the thing that you're probably going to be doing all your time playing the game. It's going to be, like, I would like to say, if there's a ratio of it, you're going to be playing and going through dungeons 75% of the time, but only doing gardening, like, in the first, like, couple of hours in the day during the game, and that's it. Like, so the reason why I'm saying this is because if a lot of people are polarized, no, that's not the word, polarized by this. Sorry, my brain just completely shut off when I said polarized. Anyways, if you were polarized by the fact that it's a farming game, it's actually more of an action RPG with a farming element in there that actually brings back to the gameplay system. So initially when I was coming in to the game, first of all, thank you, Square Enix, for allowing 3 options for gender, male, female, or binary. Cool, I don't mind it. 2, the presentation of the game, I think it's okay. Again, this is a game for the Switch, so, I mean, they didn't need to put as much budget into the game. There's some spots where I wish they did, but that's neither here nor there. But this game was a lot more story-oriented than I thought it was going to be. I've played stuff like Rune Factory on the channel that you've seen. I have played Stardew Valley. I have played Harvest Moon. I have played Slime Rancher. And yes, I have played Minecraft, and even if you want to deny that Minecraft isn't the same as all these other farming games, bro, you can just deny it all you want, and it's okay. But for us who have played Minecraft, we all know that it's basically the first farming simulator that people cared about and still play to this day, and why people actually enjoy watching it. It may not have as many systems as all these other farming games, yes, but you know, it's a sandbox game that basically is about going down and mining, breaking trees, getting all these materials, and then crafting stuff so you can continue playing the game for infinitum. Just like any of these other farming simulator type games. Now, I think if you really like narrative games, I think Harvestella will be something that you enjoy. Me, I'm like, I don't mind the narrative in the game more than it's just like, because it's a demo, you only get to see bits and pieces of it, and because of how the story works in this game, it kind of drugged down the experience for me in the demo, because basically the first 6 days of you playing the game, you are going to be just running around with doing nothing other than waiting for story procs. Now, this is polarizing is because, again, I didn't expect this game to be more focused on doing story for the first, like, 3 hours of the game. But it was, and I was like, oh, okay, well, you know, I would like to be able to play more of the game and experience more of the stuff like the dungeons and whatever, but, you know, okay, like, the game's taking its time talking about all this stuff and it's whatever. One thing I think is insulting, though, is that this game has no voice acting, other than when you go into dungeons and fighting, which is kind of insulting when they ask you, hey, would you like English or Japanese voice? And being like, oh yeah, this doesn't matter unless you're in a fight, so... Because most dialogue in this game is not voiced. It's unfortunate, but it's true. There's only certain quips in the game that get voice acting, like for some of the shopkeepers when you talk to them. And some of the characters when you go into dungeons and you're fighting, and that's about it. Even our main character has a bit of a voice, but they don't really speak at all, because, like I said, most of this is just text and dialogue, which... I'm breathing in and exhaling, because I'm like, I'm not getting mad, because it's not technically Square Enix's fault, but I will say that, boy, I am a little bit spoiled for choice for games that I'm like, it has voice acting in it, and it has a lot more voice acting, and I can feel like it's somewhat naturally implemented. This is also coming from somebody who played, you know, Rune Factory 5, which that game was very polarizing with its localization and the choices for what gets voiced and what doesn't get voiced. But at least I could say that they made an attempt. In this game, I'm like, you might as well should have just not had any voice acting in that. At least I could have enjoyed the ambivalence of not knowing what voice acting was in this game, because it's very jarring voice acting. It's not the worst, it's just jarring because it's like, oh, now the characters are going to speak because they're in this dungeon and they're going to talk a little bit sometimes when they attack enemies, but, you know, sometimes even the voice mixing in this game is kind of awkward at times, but, you know, again, as somebody who plays Rune Factory 5, that's not the really big deal breaker for me. Because now, we're going to talk about a little bit, not just of my experience now, we're going to talk about a few of the mechanics that you guys should know going into this game, because, oh boy, this game sure has some mechanics that they don't really tell you or really should focus on, because this game is very polarizing in the fact that, you know, they expect you to know what to do, like, a lot. Like, okay, so, it's a farming game, so you're like, okay, I farm, right? And it's like, okay, well, explain the basics, like, okay, if you have your hoe, till the fields. Now, in a normal farming game, you would only have to do it once and you would be done. This game is like, nah, you have to do it twice. Once to get the ground ready, and then the second time will actually make it so you can plant seeds. Does this have any other mechanic line to it other than just to waste extra time? I don't know, because again, the demo only goes up into 15 days, or until you defeat the first dungeon of the game. Which is the first chapter, by the way, because this game is chapter-based. Now, if you ask me when I play a farming game that, is this a chapter-based thing? No. Rune Factory 5 has 2 sections. The beginning section where you're collecting all the characters and recruiting everybody to your village, which is one arc, which you could play like most of the game and not even finish that first arc within the first year if you really wanted to. And 2, when it goes on to the second arc, it's just finishing off the story, and once you finish off the story, it's then just a regular farming game after that, right?
Here I go.
Which, I was polarized by the fact that it's like Chapter 1 and then it said Chapter 2 complete, and I'm like, what? Oh, so this game is an RPG, not a farming simulator, because the way that they're going about this is more just the progression of your character getting strength from growing crops and selling them so you can get money, and so you can be able to go in dungeons longer. And I'm like, okay, that makes a little bit more sense, but starting off, I was very polarized that the first 6 days of the game, and I gotta tell you guys this, the first 6 days of the game, you do not start off at a consistent time every single time. They teach you some tutorials and being like, okay, you have a fixed watering can and hoe. You can upgrade them probably later, but this is all you got. You got a hoe that you can do your digging for your soil, and then here's your watering can, which I will say, I will praise the game on saying, thank you for not making me have to collect water in this game, because boy oh boy, I feel like it would have been a nuisance, and also I just think most of these farming games now, I really don't care about collecting water to be like, oh, I collected the water so I can fill up my pail. I'm like, who cares? Because I'm like, most of the watering upgrades in most of these farming games
you have my gratitude.
Basically just boil down to, oh, the bigger watering can allows you to get more water in it. And I'm like, okay, I really wish it just was infinite. But, you know, whatever. But I appraise the game for that, at least. But, like, farming in this game is very interesting also because most crops in this game will only take less than a week. Like, some games, like Rune Factory, there are crops that usually take, like, I don't know. It will say, like, 7 to 10 days, some will take 14 days. Like, some of the very cheap crops will take, like, less than that, obviously. Same as this game. But I'm like, the highest amount of days that I've seen for a crop or a tree sapling, which is also in, like, Rune Factory games, it's like 7 days, which is strange because I'm like, I'm not used to everything basically taking less than a couple of days to grow, but at least they make it so that farming is very viable, very, very viable early on for both getting food and also making a lot of money, because you can just buy some of the cheapest seeds or like some of the higher level seeds and you only would be waiting like another like day or two difference with and get more money out of it. So that's also a relief. Alright, so I guess I gotta talk about the elephant in the room with this game. Time. So this game is kind of similar to another game that I have never played, but I know of my friends who have played it and have at least digested enough to know that Atelier Arrives has a time mechanic for their game because, again, a lot of their game is crafting and farming, so you can go into dungeons and then do cool stuff. Now, I'm not saying that that's a bad feature to have in this game. No. The thing I'm saying that's bad is that how it scales. So, as a normal farming game, usually it either does it by minutes or by fives. This game does it by 10. Now, 10 minutes doesn't seem like a lot until you realize there's certain areas in this game that will drain your time faster than you can say, Holy Mama Wama, it's Kama with Sokama, you know? Or Holy America, you know? Whatever, whichever one floats your boat. Because, so, everything being 10 minutes intervals is kind of polarizing coming from like Rune Factory or any other farming game, because you could, so you live right next to the village. You could walk to the village, but it takes 30 of your minutes.
I think this battle is best avoided. Now,
this is on the world map. So if you go ahead and walk to a dungeon on the world map, you waste at least an hour and a half of your time walking to one, because every single step takes away 10 minutes. Now, if you think I'm a little bit appalled by it, that's because I am. Because in this game, I've learned very quickly that if you're going to play the demo or play this game when it releases, focus on one thing. Because I don't know if they're going to patch it so it's going to be 5 now, or they're going to keep the 10 because they think that's what sober gameplay is, what people want. And I'm like, realistically, if you made it 5 minutes, at least it wouldn't be as polarizing, because at least I'd be getting, at least not losing all my time doing one thing. But, you know, this game really likes saying, hey, if you want to get items, you can craft them. But each item has a set amount of time that you have to use, or is required to use, to be able to make it. Okay, and it's like, okay, so this wouldn't be bad, but, you know,
chances of survival
I'll accept it, because at least I can stay up past, like, a certain time, right? this game only allows your character to stay up until 12. If you're outside of your house after 12 o'clock, you will pass out and you will get basically sent back to your place. You won't lose any of your items, it doesn't seem, but you will lose money because you will get the doctor character in this game that'd be like, hey, I saw you outside of your house because somebody left you there. I put you in and then took your money from you, and now I'm going to leave. Bye-bye. As somebody who has played Rune Factory, and somebody who has played all these other Harvest games, like I said, Stardew Valley and Harvest Moon, you can stay up past that time as long as you have the energy, which is fine. You might not be as rested for the next day, and you might not get as much stamina or stuff recovered because you do that. But it doesn't heavily punish you by saying, nah, if you're outside past this time, you literally just, you get RKO'd back to your house and lose money, and you suck, and you should have had more time, forehead. So yeah, I will say that the time in this game, like, that's something I really hope that does get patched in, like, at least 5 minutes, man. You can't have a game where you're spending, like, 10 minutes at a time basically walking around nowhere, like walking around on the overworld, lose about 2 hours of your time and be like, wow, this is sober, this is fun, right? The kids think it's fun when you lose all this amount of time for just wanting to go to a different location on the map. Because I'm like, the thing that's gonna annoy me the most is that areas are gonna soon get further and further away from each other. Which, oh my gosh, if the more I think about it, the more it annoys me, because I'm like, you're going to be on some tight scheduling if this is what the game is going to be like during the full run of the game. Again, luckily when you're inside dungeons, it slows down significantly, so the 10-minute time, when it goes up by 10 minutes every time, so the time keeps going by 10 minutes, it's not as polarizing, because I'm like, okay, you're in a dungeon. This makes sense that it's going at the speed that it is, because if it was going at the same as the world map, that would be insane. But unfortunately, the village also falls into this category of, this is insane. You're walking around the village, from the entrance to where the first shop is, you could wait 30 minutes. Just by walking, because it goes from anywhere between 15 to 30 steps, it can take 10 minutes. It's not always consistent, I don't think, because it might be 20 steps, but even still, 20 steps with your character who doesn't move all that fast already, makes it kind of polarizing, because you basically are like, man, I'm just stuck to the whims of the game, saying that I don't got enough time to do everything, so you better pick and choose. Alright, and that's going to lead me into my next thing that I need to talk about.
Let the battle commence. End of battle.
Now, the next thing I need to talk about is the mechanics of how this game works, because, again, like every other farming game, there's a stamina system. So, how a lot of the actual stuff is going to revolve around in this game is your hunger meter. So hunger is a unique meter to this game, where it basically is like, okay, since we don't want to have like magic and everything be like separate bars, because that would be kind of annoying to manage, what we did instead was make this cool little thing where there's a stomach icon next to your character's HP and then their stamina meter. Now stamina in this game is universal. You can use magic with it, you use running with it, you use swinging your weapon with it. This one is a very major one. If you don't have any stamina, you will not be able to attack, just so to let you know. So basically, hunger is a very big key thing in this game, where it's like, oh, if you go hungry for a day, you're going to be struggling once you get to certain areas where you need to have stamina. Because your stamina will not replenish as long as you don't have something in your stomach. Now, at least this game is generous enough to be like, you can basically eat everything. Anything that has a little hunger icon next to it when you select it as an item will give you at least a set amount of hunger in your hunger meter filled up. I'm pretty sure it maxes out at 100, because that would be probably the most sane thing that this game has done.
I suggest
but I will say, for anybody who's
my gratitude.
Please get the kitchen first. In this game, they give you accessory building to build accessories and some of the equipment stuff. That doesn't matter. That stuff doesn't matter. You really need to save up $2,000 to refurbish your kitchen that you're staying in, so you can make dishes. Because the first dish that you get in the game is probably the one that's going to be able to carry you throughout every rest of the game, every rest of the things that go on in the game for the next little while. Because the first actual recipe you get is actually after you refurbish your kitchen in your first starting area, and it gives you like 25 hunger, and it basically fully heals you and your party, because any item that you use in this game to heal, it
gratitude.
heals everybody and not just yourself, which is really nice. Because all of your party is AI controlled, so that's also a big thing to note. But I will say that it was really something where I was just like, imagine trying to do farm work and then you realize that you ran out of stamina, but you sold all of your vegetables and stuff, so I guess you're just gonna have to go to sleep for the day, because you literally can't do anything at all once you lose all your stamina. As long as you have a small piece of food in you, it doesn't matter if it's like a handful of berries, a piece of wheat, whatever. As long as you have at least something in your stomach, like some amount of food or hunger gauge filled, you will regain your stamina by standing still and not doing anything. You will get it back. Even when you're doing stuff, you will get it back little by little, but your hunger gauge goes down a lot faster while you're trying to digest your food faster when you're obviously doing action. So you're going to lose out on some of that stamina you were going to get because you're burning your hunger that much quicker. But I'm just telling you, for when the game comes out, or if you're playing the demo, please, for the love of everything that's good, save up $2,000 so you can get that. Because that's a crucial thing in this game. Managing your hunger is very crucial because it will allow you to do everything else in the game, such as going through dungeons for a long time, such as being able to work on your crops, be able to run around at a decent speed instead of walking slow pace and wasting a lot of time. A lot of stuff. It's kind of just needed to have your hunger filled at some point during your gameplay. Which also brings me to another point that I was kind of thinking about that I didn't want to really talk about, but dungeon crawling. Dungeon crawling is really fun in this game. I think it's okay. It's not anything super revolutionary, but because of the whole time system that they have going on, what they really want you to do in this game is make and create shortcuts. Now, shortcuts mean a lot more in this game than almost any other type of RPG I've ever played. Almost any of them. Because, quite legitimately, one of the big things about this game is that you want to save as much time as possible. Now, to get time, to save time, you need to spend time. So spending time making shortcuts by repairing like ladders or bridges or whatever, by having the necessary tools like a repair kit, and also having enough time on your clock so you don't just instantly get knocked out, is very important, because most times when you're going in a dungeon, you'll see these places and it's like, okay, we can repair this, but it's going to take an hour. Are you sure you're willing to waste an hour? And if you are, then you can create a shortcut so the next time you come in the dungeon, like another day, oh wow, now I saved like almost 2 hours worth of walking in the dungeon to just climb up this ladder that basically made me only waste like 20 minutes, which is great. Which is really great, considering that I still don't know if there's going to be a point in this game where you can reduce the amount of time you're wasting. Because once that's the case, I'm like, this game is going to be golden. This game is going to be probably on one of the top of my list of being like interesting and most fun games. But also with dungeons, there are set locations where you can go and farm certain items. One of the first recipes you get, you can go through the dungeon for one day, just ignoring most of the enemies if you're high enough level, grabbing the items and then leaving, and then when you leave, you can go back to your house, and then you can use your return bell or whatever to go back to your house. And then instead of wasting the rest of your day going through the dungeon knowing that you don't have enough equipment or tools or food to keep you filled while going through the dungeon, you can go home and then go home, use your time to cook so you can prepare for the next day, so you're not as far behind the next day that you were today. Which is very smart. I think that's a very smart decision, though again, it comes at the catalyst of everything taking so much time that I'm like, this wouldn't be as polarizing and taxing for me to have to consider doing every single day, when you really basically are like, you're kind of forced to choose what to work on most of the time, which is either do dungeon stuff or prepare for the dungeon stuff the next day, because that's basically all that it's going to be through Harvestella, it seems. You're going to be either choosing to prepare more stuff and get more stuff ready, like getting enough money to get like a backpack level up, which is going to be very important, because the more space you have, the more stuff you can collect and the more stuff you can bring with you, so the less likely you're going to have to waste time or give up like good resources that you're going to find in the dungeon that you want to keep. Storage boxes in this game are very plentiful over in the area where your character's house is, So, like, that's completely fine and understandable, because it's not like Room Factory where you can buy your furniture and move it. They have plenty of them, so you can at least have access to them when you're at your home base. That's the only place you seem to have access to them at this point, but, you know, it's very nice to have, and it holds everything, whether it's food or not, which is nice, because Room Factory, unfortunately, even though I like the fact that, you know, have a separate place for your vegetables, your foods, and whatever, I like this game for the fact that I'm like, I can put my food in this box and they're not going to spoil. Because that's the logic that it takes, and I'm like, thank you. Because I'm like, I should be able to do that in Room Factory if it's packaged or something, but, you know, they're like, nah, bro, you need a fridge. And that costs like $5,000, plus a lot of wood and lumber. There are, like I said before, there are material crafting things too in this game. Most of the stuff you probably won't be using until probably, I would like to say, the second dungeon. There will be some stuff in the first dungeon that you can go back and if you use to repair kit, which is something that you get from your party member. Same with the same function. Yeah, you'll use probably a lot of this stuff later onto other dungeons because there's going to be a lot more shortcuts are probably going to require that. But for the beginning of the game or the demo, I wouldn't suggest you go ahead and do that. Only because I'm just like, you can spend more time making food and that would make your life a whole lot easier. Okay, obviously, there's a few things that I've been kind of skimming over. So, first of all, let's just talk about the demo and the fact that you have to rely on autosave until you get to the first dungeon, get your first party member, and enter the second part of the area. Now, I'm not saying that this is a really bad decision, but I'm like, I really wish that the mandatory save feature that, you should have at the beginning of any game is not locked behind 3 hours or almost 2 hours worth of progressing the story. I am personally just one of the minds of like, please let me save when I need to save. But the fact that it almost comes 2 hours in is kind of polarizing, so please don't get used to the fact that you don't have a save until that far in. Basically how it was explained in the game is that these crystals that the characters that are considered quote-unquote bad, but are just entities that live from another universe or another world, basically have the power to tap into these crystals given this one device that you get in the game. And by using those crystals, then you're able to save, warp back to your house if need to be, warp further into dungeons. That's all fine and well, but surely I wish I didn't have to waste the first 6 of my days not being able to have any capability of doing that beforehand. But, I digress. The developer thinks that probably would be the smartest time to do it, because after all the story is said and done, the main plot that pushes you forward to go into the dungeon anyways is because of all the story stuff. And I guess the last thing we should really talk about for this video is about the combat. I think the combat is okay. It's action-y, but how, you could say, again, I like Stardew Valley, but, there's not much combat. The beginning of the game has a lot more than that, but it's still limited by the fact that, job points are a thing. So, in this game, it seems like you get about 12 different unique classes. I tried to count them up correctly. It might be 12, it might be 16, but I'm pretty sure the whole wheel that you have for your jobs, you start off with regular fighter class, which has sword, which has good attack damage, physical attack damage, can do some really good medium range attacks, and has one fire-based physical skill, which is cool. And then we have also the Mage class, which that one is cool. Pun totally intended because it uses ice. But the Mage class is, again, it's a long-range weapon, which it takes time for it to charge the magic spell, but boy does it hit hard if somebody's weak to magic, so. But really you're just going to be pressing the attack button, running away and pressing the attack button, or pressing the attack button and sometimes holding down the Z or R button.
At this rate, your chances of survival are looking to have my gratitude.
But that's really about it. I wish I got more tools to play with. Also, I wish JP was a little bit easier to come by, because unfortunately this game has one of the things that I don't like about most RPGs that have sort of this system, where it's like, oh, by the way, all of these points are individual, by the way. So you gotta spend a lot of time grinding up each individual one in an action RPG, where it doesn't seem like you can level down. So you have to usually fight things that are around your level, which is, for the most part, kind of annoying because you can switch jobs in this game. So they have a ability where you can basically hold down the VR, and then if you press the little what would I call them? The button, the cardinal buttons for like where the D-pad would be on your Switch. Those buttons to switch to the other job. Now, luckily, again, in this game, they have a skill for each class that's like reduce the cooldown for switching. It does work, but it still takes about like 10 seconds to be able to charge, where if you didn't get the ability, it's like almost 15 to 20, which is like yikes. So you're still going to be probably forcing yourself to use one job class most times anyways, because I don't know how frequently you're going to get job classes in this game. But if the way that I think is going to work is going to work, it's going to be really hard and polarizing to keep everything up to snuff, because you're going to have probably just like the same 4 classes that you equip and then just use. Because at that point in the game, you're going to be like, why would I want to learn another class and spend all the time learning another class and utilizing these skills when I could just continue to just, I don't know, use the stuff that I've already maxed out, basically, which is something that I'm worried about, because enemy scaling in this game is kind of scary, especially since I know now that it's chapter-based. So basically, at the beginning of the dungeon, you're fighting things that are like level 1, level 2, and you're like, okay, that's fine. Sometimes they're level 3 or 4. Then you get to the second area, and then they're like level 5, 6, 7, 8s, and 9s, and you're like, that's a huge jump. And the only way you level up in this game is by sleeping, and then using all the acquired XP that you got from defeating enemies. Because you don't level up on the spot. You have to level up once you sleep, and also when you get your money for all your items that you sold. Which is polarizing, because going for dungeons means you have to spend at least upwards, I would say. Any given dungeon run, you're probably going to have to spend at least 5 days going through it. Or if you're careful or you brought enough resources, you can brute force your way through it within even less days. It's one of those things where I'm like, man, the enemy levels kind of scale really fast in this game. Like, the last area of the game, I think, before I ended up finishing, like, there was like level 10s and 11s, and I was still like only a level 7 when I got to the boss of that particular area. Which, bosses in this game are kind of booty butt cheeks. Because one of the big things that I've been skirting around with the combat is there's no really defensive skills. There might be a class that is a defense-oriented build, but like, there are no defensive skills in the demo of this game. You just take damage. You need items so you don't die from taking damage, because, oh boy, you do not have a dodge that has invincibility, you do not have any ways to block. You are just attacking and hoping you can reduce damage from bosses or enemies by making sure that you can kill them fast enough and be on top of your healing fast enough so you do not die. I will tell you right now, I died to the final boss like 5 times, because one of the gimmicks is, hey, this boss is going to be doing this really big move. By the way, it's still going to hit you because you got no way to defend yourself, but if you get their thing down low enough, you won't instant die to it at least. And I'm like, that doesn't really seem like a satisfying way to build your game, where, hey, you just have to hope that you can face tank a lot of damage until you get the class that actually lets you defend, which was kind of one of the reasons why I'm making this video in particular, because I'm like, there's a lot of things that this game is doing that I'm actually interested in, but there's a lot of things in this game that make me feel like, why would I play this game over any other of these farming games or simulator-like games that I feel like it doesn't make me feel so polarized. So yeah, the only I guess since we're going to wrap up the video here, because again, it's not that I dislike this game, I really want to see it succeed. I just think that the way that they're doing some of the things is very polarizing for somebody who also plays RPGs for like something that he just enjoys in his free time and does usually try to choose harder difficulty. Luckily, this game doesn't seem to have higher difficulty, because I don't want to even know how they would scale it in this game, because it's just polarizing in a way that I don't think I would play it on hard, because playing it on normal seems like it's already difficult enough because of the lack of tools that you'll have early on. And considering that we only see a small taste of what the game has to offer, it's really polarizing to be like, I want to play this game, considering that I'm like, I don't know if they're going to give us more options and stuff later. Like, weapon crafting in this game, you only have one set of weapons, so you just have to get materials so you can upgrade them at the blacksmith, but it's like, the upgrades of the stats are very minimal at most. And also, why would you ever upgrade your AI character's weapons when you don't know if they're going to stay in your party? Spoilers, one of them that you get that gives you all the good stuff that I talked about ends up not being in your party after that dungeon. So it's like, cool, I'm glad I didn't waste any of my stuff on them because that would have sucked. But no, if you're interested in playing Harvestella, I say pick it up. I think the art style and the story direction that where they're going is kind of interesting. I do think, like I said, there's a few things that I really appreciate about this game that I would say that I really wish some of these newer titles of farming games like Rune Factory and stuff would take into consideration as well. I know Rune Factory is its own thing and Harvestella is its own thing, and that's why I'm like not trying to compare everything to this. Everything to every other harvest and farming game to Harvestella. But it's really, I think it's like one of the biggest things that I hope you guys take away from this video is that this game is more of a action RPG with some farm coded stuff in there that's more like Atelier Arise than your regular farming sim. I want to get that across because if you're just hoping for a game where you can just do a lot of farming and talk with the residents and like create bonds and stuff, that's probably not going to happen as much in this game because it has a very clear-cut thing where it wants to try to do story, focus on growing your character as an actual character that goes around and starts helping people. There's a lot of choices in the game, but it's all flavor text to make sure the person who's playing is being interactive and stuff. I hope they change the time so it's not going up by 10 minutes and rather than, like, 5, which is more sober. And yeah, I hope that a lot of people try and play this game, or at least play the demo before the game comes out. I think that it's a good game, but I definitely can tell that it's going to be polarizing and hard for a lot of people to get into, probably after playing the first, couple of hours. But once you start getting to the flow of realizing, okay, spend a day organizing your stuff so you can go and do the big dungeon run the next following day, I think will be the thing that opens a lot of people's eyes to enjoying this game. For me, I'm probably going to think about getting it around that time. But again, Sonic Forgers comes out that month. Same with the new Pokemon game. And I'm just like, man, it just really depends for me. But anyways, guys, I've been Multi12679, other known as Multi-Man. And this has been, once again, talking about Harvestella. And yeah, I'll be back hopefully maybe at some point talking more about the game. Maybe when I complete it or when I get to play it. But until then, I have the Multi12679, other known as Multi-Man, and I'll catch you lovely chows on the internet next time. So ciao, ciao, until then.